is Terry Bradshaw, quarterback, Pittsburgh Steelers.
It's 7:15. There's a new home run champion of all time, and it's Henry Aaron.
This is baseball, Major League Baseball. And this is
ABC's Monday Night Baseball, live from Fenway Park in Boston, Massachusetts.
Looking. He's under the gun. He's tied. He throws. It is.
It is time for the Past Star Prime podcast, our weekly look back at sports from 50 years ago through old issues of Sports Illustrated. Bill Mahoney, almost said Bill Hoffman, Mark Hoffman, and Scott Johnston. That's me on hand once again. And this week, guys, glad none of us were sick as a dog for this one. That's because on the cover is a dog, a sheepdog that won the 1975 Westminster Kennel Club competition, the 99th Westminster Show. Now, I have to admit, I had to look up what CH stands for, which is champion. Then I had to look up Barvan. That's the kennel. Put it all together. Champion Sir Lancelot of Barvan. That's the type of dog that won. So
yes.
I bet, that where was if Lancelot won it, where was King Arthur during all this,
Obviously not winning.
Off with his head. Right? Now, Mark, last week we got an update on your reunification of your cat, Fluffy.
Yes.
How's she doing? And how old is Fluffy?
She's 14, probably just turned 14, but she's in remarkable shape because she was an outdoor cat. And that's why she was able to survive 21 days. So she's climbing trees, jumping up. So since we've got her in the new place, she's been staying in the bedroom. And I think at some point we need to get her outside to make sure she's safe because she needs to move around, just keeping her in one room is,
Well, she's always eating out every night. So, gotten good.
She's eating again and gaining weight back. So for someone that's been out for 21 days, she's done pretty good.
Good. Good. And Billy, you've got a great dog, Bones. How's Bones doing? He's getting up there in age too.
Yeah, he's 14 as well. He said 14. Let's see, 30. Yeah, I believe he's 14 years old. Yep. Yeah, we were just running with him today. Still runs, still has a good time. Seems the doctor says he's in great shape. So that's good. When you have a little daughter that loves him, that's very good.
That is really good.
It does, but I
hope he lives to be 25.
I was just going to say, all of us are in fear, and Mark, you were probably going through that, with Fluffy missing of like that day when you got to tell your kid, uh-oh.
Yep.
Yeah. I have 2 rescue dogs, despite my wife not being a fan of pups. Tally's 11. She's a Nova Scotia duck-tolling retriever. Say that.
Of course she is.
Wow.
And we got her for my oldest daughter, Cadence, and Rosie is 7. She's a silky Chihuahua and Yorkie mix, supposedly. So you never know with these rescue pups. We got her for my younger daughter, Tatum. And, my wife now loves dogs. So
that's nice.
So mine are definitely not purebloods, though. And that's the criteria for being in the Westminster. But before we get to that, let's talk a little Monopoly, shall we, Billy?
Let's do it. So the Monopoly champion is 1975. He's 23-year-old Alvin Aldridge, just an accounting student. He likes to be called Big Al, even though he's real thin, is what what I've read. But he was wasting people playing Monopoly. I mean, taking them out in minutes. So after he won the World Monopoly Championship, one reporter asked him, said, "Wow, Big Al, why did it take you 45 minutes to put the opponent out?" He looked at him and said, "Well, so the game would last longer." And that is Aldridge is the last American to win the Monopoly Championship. There's not been an American to win one at all. The last championship was in 2015, but no Americans have won it after him.
Well, Monopoly to me was perfect on a rainy day because you could play that 4 or 5 hours, and it was a great game. But I always think of the movie Heretic, where Hugh Grant's doing, well, here's Monopoly, and then what about this, the landlord game, which was basically Monopoly before Monopoly.
No, I didn't know that. That actually was a game?
Yes.
Oh, I didn't know
So
that.
that thing in the movie Hair Trick is true.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Oh,
I,
look at
I
that.
enjoyed Monopoly for a time in my life. I
Me
did.
too. Me too. If you get the right people and you go all have fun, it's a great game.
Yeah. Now I feel like it would be like just incredibly boring, but I don't know. Maybe it wouldn't be. Maybe it'd be fun. I don't
Depends
know.
on the people you play with.
Yeah. Time to work like a dog and get to this issue. We'll start off like always with the scorecard. Who wants to go first? Mark?
Well, let's talk about a hockey player, which is usually Bill's forte, and that would be Keith Magnuson of the
Magnuson. Yeah.
of the Chicago Blackhawks. Anyway, if it wasn't for bad luck, I think he'd have no luck at all. I mean, injury after injury after injury. And I think let's go through the list, okay? So he had a hairline fracture of his wrist and was out 18 games. Then he comes back. He gets a 3-game suspension for breaking the jaw of a Vancouver player. But he struck him with his taped hand, which broke a new NHL rule. Then he had the flu, didn't lose there. Then he had a fight with a Penguins player. He fractured his ankle, and now he's not expected back till mid-March. So, I mean, this is a guy getting out of bed. I'd be careful. You know?
Yeah. Not someone you can count on being in the lineup that night.
Yeah. But that'd be like, I'm going to walk under this ladder where that piano is being hoisted up and, and just I'm going to go run across the street where these cars are just flying by, You're asking for trouble.
Bill, what do you got?
Okay, I'm going to tell you right now, I did not brew up this story, so don't jump on me about it. But it's about a 10-year-old girl and her mom. This little girl, she's in class one day when the topic is brought up about the environment and water pollution and how water tastes differently from one town to the next. When the kids were asked to tell their experience with water, the little girl raised her hand. She said, "Last summer when we were up at Clear Lake on vacation, the water was so bad my mom had to drink beer all day."
Well, sailors would drink beer because the water would always be bad. So a lot of times sailors, that would be their diet, beer, because at least it's purified, with the alcohol.
My friend Victor's dad was on the wagon. Gosh, this is probably in the late 70s. We're probably like 10 years old. And we were up at Clear Lake, which is, Northern California. And then we're fishing. And it's like 100 degrees. And I'll never forget, the cooler had beers and Country Time lemonade. And that was it. And Victor and I just, we just downed like the Country Time lemonades in no time flat, leaving nothing but beer for Victor's dad. And he was like, blamed us for years for falling off the wagon because there was nothing else to drink up that way. So,
you bastard, poor guy.
Yeah, exactly.
Cirrhosis of the liver because of you.
Yeah, he lived to be 90. I think he did okay. Pac Bell has a commercial starring Celtics legend Bill Russell and a man by the name of Ron Watts, who played with Russell in Boston briefly. 28 career games where he averaged 1.4 points a game. Watts said injuries shortened what promised to be a bleak career. Watts went to Wake Forest where he roomed with Brian Piccolo. And now he's being asked on the streets, who's that Bill Russell guy you're in the commercials with? Of course, Russell is one of the all-time greats, starting at USF, another center just entering his college days at the University of San Francisco in this issue. And we will be chatting with Big Bill Cartwright in just a little bit. But before we get to Big Bill, let's go and finish up with They Said It. Mark, who said what?
Well, Glenn Cameron, the Florida linebacker, and ended up being Cincinnati's #1 draft choice in 1975. They asked him what his college major was. He said, academic survival. I think we've all known about that. But the funny thing is that, Cameron ended up playing his entire career with the Bengals. He played like 11 seasons with them from 75 to 85. And then he ended up a trial lawyer and a partner in a law firm in Florida. So his academic survival, I guess, it worked for him. He survived.
Yeah, he more than survived. He thrived.
Yeah. He did.
Yeah. Billy.
Okay. This comes from Oakland Raider fullback Marv Hubbard. He says, people say we can't win the big games. The only thing I have to say about that is we can't win the big games. Got to be honest with it, though.
It feels
You
like
know,
deja vu.
as a Raiders fan, I would do anything to be in a big game.
Yes. Well, you got Pete Carroll now.
It's been so long. Oh, the last big game we were in, we got destroyed by Tampa Bay.
Wasn't that the Super Bowl? Yeah.
It was, and that was what, 03 or 04, something like that.
Damn,
Oh,
that seems like to me I can picture that game in my head. Doggone.
right, right. All right, let's move on to our cover story. And if it's the cover story, it's a big one. It's Hank Aaron, it's Pete Rose, it's Jimmy Connors, and this week it's Dudley. Low down on the top dogs. It's the Westminster Dog Show. Every dog has his day. That's how this article starts. And for a 110-pound sheepdog, Sir Lancelot of Barvan, whose, as I mentioned, his real name is Dudley, that day was the day he became a champion. And for the first time in 61 years, a Canadian wins it. Just a sensational day for our furry friends from the north. And I had to dissect that for a while. I thought his name was Sir Lancelot. That's what I thought his name was. Apparently, that's the breed of the dog.
Oh.
And the CH on the cover of Sports Illustrated, I was like, I don't know what Sir Lancelot is. So that stands for champion.
Ooh.
And then of Barvan is the kennel that he's from. So champion, and then Sir Lancelot, and then of Barvan. And you put it all together, and that's what it has. But I prefer Dudley.
Dudley's a good one. Yeah, Dudley's a good name.
And you know what? Lancelot's a better name for a secret chimp. If anyone remembers that old show.
No.
That's where they took these monkeys and they pretended these monkeys could talk. So the monkeys would like be flapping their mouth and they just dub in their own script for whatever the show was about. And it was all about a secret agent, Lancelot Link. He was a secret chimp. So there's some deep in the 70s.
We'll have to check that one out.
Yeah.
To get into Mark's head.
Yes.
Yeah.
And there's just so much there.
It takes a lot of drilling.
There's just so much in there.
Well, from the prairie where sheepdogs hang out when they're not winning dog shows in Madison Square Garden, we are lucky enough to have Dudley with us on the phone.
Oh,
so,
amazing.
Joining us, now he makes everyone call them champion Sir Lancelot of Barvan. So, but I'm, known to family and friends. Dudley, congrats on your big win. Did you think you had it in the bag? Well, I wouldn't call them bitches, but well, that's not very nice. But I wouldn't call her that either. Can I ask you, how much do you owe your success to your Dudley? Mark, get me a bag to clean that up, will you? Some champion you are. That's Bill. He works here as well.
Yes.
No, Bill is not an idiot. Now I've had enough of this. Bill, you asked Dudley some questions.
Hey, Dudley, get your act together here first. Come on, you're a champion. But I'm not even going to call you Dudley. I'm going to call you Sir because I respect what you've done. But I got a problem here at my house, and you're the guy to go to. My dog, Bones, I have no idea when he's got to poop, and then he just poops. What do you do? What kind of signs do you give when you've got to go to the bathroom? So I know when I look at Bones when he's got to poop, because I don't want Bones to do what you just did, and that Mark had to get a bag for it. Oh, thank you. Wait. Thank you, Dudley. It's a double lick. Okay, so if you lick your paws a couple times, that's bathroom. Good. I've got it. I'm writing it down right now. Bones is licking. I better get going.
I got a question for Dudley. What's your favorite movie? Really? I thought it'd be something like Lassie or Rin Tin Tin. But you're telling me Dog Day Afternoon? Wow, I didn't know you were an Al Pacino fan. That's pretty cool.
All right, champ. We see you double licking, so we're going to let you go. But thanks for joining us and coming on, and good luck going forward. Yeah, whatever. Okay. It's a
Hey,
dog and pony show, isn't it,
That
guys?
that guy has a
yeah,
rough life, man.
and which one of you let the dogs out?
Oof, oof, oof.
Let's talk horses, shall we? Pleasure, Foolish, and Foregone. Two of the best horses from 1974 are picking up where they left off. Foolish Pleasure was unbeaten as a 2-year-old, and Forego is a dominant 5-year-old who was the horse of the year in 74. He is great at handicap races where he carries weight as much as 134 pounds. That's almost as much as Mark weighed when he was wrestling. Uh, he wins on everything except a sloppy track like the Marlboro Cup last year, where it was raining cats and dogs.
Oh, God.
More on both these horses as the year goes on, but we're going to go from the horse track to the sprint car track. Billy.
Oh yeah, this is crazy. It starts out really positive, and get your tissues out. It doesn't end well. This is about Jan Opperman. He was an American race car driver. He actually won the 1971 Knoxville Nationals, which is a premier event in the sprint car racing, which Jan Opperman was truly known for. Yes, he had a couple starts at the Indianapolis 500, but sprint car racing was his thing. But unfortunately, he suffered a career-ending injury in 1981, a crash that left him living as an asthmatic invalid for 16 years. To tell you a little bit about that disease, it's an injury. This injury caused damage to the area of the brain that controls language, expression, and comprehension. He could not communicate the last number of years of his life before he passed away. It's a sad ending to an amazing champion.
It was basically
Yeah.
like he had a stroke. I
Yeah.
mean, my dad had had heart surgery and suffered a really mild stroke during the surgery.
Oh,
But then 4 days later, he suffered a massive. He actually went code blue, and they revived him. But he had, the after effects.
yeah.
It was on the left side of the brain, which affects the right side of your body. So not only did he lose the ability to speak, but he couldn't write. He couldn't use his dominant
Yeah,
side.
that's what happened to
And this
Jan
is probably
Opperman.
what this person's living.
Yep.
And his mind might be sharp as a tack. He might be able to think and able to want to communicate to you stuff. And in his mind, he might be saying certain things to you, but it's just coming out garbage, and you can't understand on the other end.
Well, I
So that's
wonder now because
frustrating.
there's a lot of people now that are in wheelchairs that are able to communicate by keyboard. I wonder if there's anything nowadays, because this has been obviously 50 years, where he may be able to communicate if he had any movement to a finger, or something like that. I obviously never know.
It might be. I mean, my dad could say 1, 2, 3, but I had no idea what that meant.
Yeah.
And what I should have done is go, hey, if you understand me, say one, say one. If you don't understand me, say
Yeah.
two, and see what kind of response he has. That's what I should have done.
Yeah, and you
And
truly
that,
just in this world, it's just amazing how fragile the human body is. That you
oh,
feel
it
that
is.
Jan Opperman was just probably in amazing shape and strong. It just, something happens and your body can just give out.
Mm-hmm.
That
Wow,
is sad.
that's horrible. Yikes.
I mean, to
That's
bring it down.
well, it's a dangerous,
It is.
you know.
I mean, I interviewed Johnny Rutherford, and he saw those wrecks.
Yeah,
A lot of people lose their life. It's an unbelievably scary field.
yeah, for sure. Moving on, a little football. Well, actually, a little football and baseball. As it was a team superstars competition. These Vikings were steelier, made up of the 4 teams that played in the Super Bowl and the World Series. Steelers and Vikings, A's and Dodgers. 10 players from each team are on an all expenses paid trip to Hawaii with their wife or whatever they wanted to bring. Reggie Jackson brought his mother. So a little extra moolah for the guys. You got to remember back then they were still in the off season. It was a time to go and get a job. So if they could get some extra cash doing something that they enjoyed, more power to them. And they were guaranteed. The losing team was guaranteed at least $3,400 each, with the winning team getting a little more than $15,000. If that doesn't sound like a whole lot, keep in mind the average cost of a house in California in 1975, $41,000.
Wow.
Damn, I want that house.
Yes.
Right. Relay race, Billy. The A's had some trouble, didn't they?
They did in the 13 20-yard medley. Bill North, Oakland A's outfielder, prepared to pass the baton to Reggie Jackson, but Jackson started to move maybe a step too soon. Lunging desperately to get the stick into Jackson's hand, North fell face down onto the track and slid 5 yards as the baton skittered away. Nowadays, that would never happen. That is, I'm sure that's written in contracts. I read it, or I heard an article with David Carr, former quarterback of the Texans, that said in a contract now, if you do anything, if you get injured at all away from the football field, your contract can be invalidated. Back in those days, like Bill North, no, they were like, hey, get the extra money. Man, to think your starting outfielders could have gotten hurt in that, especially Jackson.
Well, you remember when Jeff Kent lied about
yes
the
oh
reason,
yeah, how he got hurt?
the reason
so
he
did
lied,
Fernando Tatis Jr.
right? Both of those were because they didn't want their contracts to be voided because they were
Yep.
doing something that they shouldn't have been doing. But
Yep.
Billy and Reggie had that famous altercation during the season in Detroit in June. Weren't on great teams despite just winning a third straight World Series. Later, North said that Jackson had started too soon and had not looked back. Jackson said nothing. So mahalo. They were still really, really good friends, right?
Yeah. Hey, thanks, man.
The Dodgers end up winning this competition, but the main event turned out to be a tug of war between two football teams. What happened with that, Billy?
Well, the Vikings end up beating the Steelers, but there was a part of that in that time in that tug of war that the Steelers looked like they were winning from the beginning. They had pulled the Vikings over, but Vikings, which needed a win because they surely didn't win the Super Bowl, actually ended up pulling the Steelers over and winning. But I forgot the guy's name. Maybe you can tell me, Scott. There was one of the players on the Steelers that jumped the rope and tried to get in front, and that basically lost it for the Steelers.
Yeah, I think it
He
was
shouldn't have left his position as the anchor to go to the front to try to pull him over.
I think it was Dwight Holmes.
That's it. Dwight,
Yeah.
yeah, he left the anchor position to go to the front, and that gave the Vikings what they needed to do to win.
Yeah, how big was this? Minnesota's Dave Osborne summed it up like this. It was an hour before I could get my gloves off, but it was the greatest experience, the greatest victory I've ever had in sport, better than any football game or anything else. We came here to beat the Steelers, and people who see that tug of war on television will remember it when they've forgotten who played in the 1975 Super Bowl. I'm not quite sure it eclipses the Super Bowl, but I'm glad that it was such a big deal for Super Dave Osborne.
I'm sure if you went to the Vikings fans and said, hey, you guys haven't won a Super Bowl, but you did win the tug of war.
Yeah.
Hey, thanks.
They'd be fine with that.
Yes.
All right, let's move on. Driving up with a compact car. This is a story about a young wrestler, very young, in fact, named Jimmy Carr. And he made headlines in 1972, right, Mark?
He did. This guy was 5'4", okay? 126 pounds, tiny guy, but man, could he wrestle. And the picture is amazing. It looks like he's breaking his back while he's taking this guy down in a wrestling match. I mean, the incredible lower body strength he had. And he was 17 years old when he competed in the 72 Olympics. He was the youngest Olympian in U.S. history at that time. But he had a family and stuff like that. But unfortunately, his life ended prematurely. He died in a car accident when he was only 58 years old.
Yeah, saw that. He went. Jimmy Carr was his name. Went to Kentucky to wrestle. Not exactly a hotbed for wrestling, but there was a reason. His brother was the coach, which isn't all that surprising because there were 16 Carr kids, so there was a lot to choose from. But his older brother Fletcher was the coach, and he kind of started a great program. Got his two younger brothers to come play for him. His brother Joe was undefeated in 26 matches, anchoring the team, and Jimmy was the other one. In just the second year, the team has improved to a record of 23-4. So good for these guys. What a good family.
You know what's amazing,
though? Did you guys wrestle growing up?
I did.
Did you? Because I watched Jimmy Carr, one of his wrestling matches, win a championship one.
Well,
that dude was relentless, man. He was picking the guy up like almost over his head and throwing him on his back. Man, that guy was solid. I don't know whatever. Well, it didn't matter his size because the guy he was wrestling was bigger than him, but he won the match. But I don't understand the rules of wrestling. But still, he was amazing.
Well, he didn't start lifting weights till I think like in
Yeah,
the mid 70s. So, which
right.
is kind of unusual. I wrestled for 2 years. I originally in high school. Originally, I was going to wrestle my freshman year, but a friend of mine convinced me drop off the team because you get out of school at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. And I thought, oh, that's neat. So I quit the team, and then I got bored after 2 weeks. So I came
Yeah,
back my sophomore and junior year, and my sophomore year, I give that wrestling season. I wasn't a good wrestler, but I gave it credit because it changed my whole life. Because I lost about 30 pounds that wrestling season and went from a guy that could barely run a mile and a half to a guy who could run it well. So it really helped me cardiovascular wise and
did you
athletic
win a
wise.
match?
It was very beneficial. Things they do as a wrestler, like you wear these sweats and they roll you up in mats and they blow heat fans on you. You drop so much weight
I
so
bet you
fast,
did.
and then you hardly eat at all either because you're trying to make weight.
Yeah, it's a tough sport.
It
Very
is.
tough.
You won't believe this. People that know me, I wrestled, I think my sophomore junior year in the 142 pounds.
Wow.
So I'm
Wow,
6 feet, 142 pounds. Yeah,
you were a stick man.
I was.
College basketball in 1974, all eyes were on Moses Malone and what school he would go to. He decided on Maryland, but in the end skipped college altogether, ended up going straight to the ABA. A year later, all eyes are on a tall kid just outside of Sacramento by the name of Bill Cartwright. He's averaging 37 points and 23 rebounds per game, leading his team to the NorCal championship. And it was decided early on that he would be attending USF to play for the Dons, and coach Bob Gallard, who by his estimation made over 50 visits to Elk Grove to recruit Cartwright, and his parents, James and Marie, liked what they saw. He was a 6'6" eighth grader.
I want,
Wow.
yeah, man.
Right? The
Damn.
NorCal Player of the Year as a junior and senior, one of the great California high school players of all time. And, what I remember about Cartwright was, we're used to like these kind of big guys now that are just huge and they
Mhm.
just beat you by their size. But Bill was like a 80% free throw shooter. He had that kind of a
Oh,
strange jump shot, but he was very just a really good offensive player.
and his look never changed on the court. He always had that sort of same look. A lot of guys change with different things. Whether you saw Cartwright scoring or playing defense, his look on his face never changed.
Bill Cartwright flourished at the University of San Francisco, where he was the WCAC Player of the Year in 1977, 78, and 79. He was drafted by the Knicks with the third pick of the first round and went on to have a stellar NBA career, capped off by winning 3 straight NBA championships with the Bulls in 1991, 92, and 93. And Big Bill joins us now on the Past Our Prime podcast. Hey, Bill, how you doing today?
I'm doing awesome.
Great.
Making it home in Sacramento.
Great. Bill, at the time of this Sports Illustrated issue comes out, I believe you're 17 years old and you're just trying to live your life, play some hoops, and keep a low profile. And you got all these coaches hounding you, recruiting you. And then Sports Illustrated does this feature on you. Your senior year must have been quite hectic.
Senior year was pretty hectic, but we had a pretty solid high school coach, and he wasn't about to allow that. We were playing hard, busy every single day, trying to get ourselves better. And, every single year we got better from my sophomore year to my senior year. It's interesting. My junior year, we were undefeated. We're 30-0. And my senior year, little Elk Grove High School wins the Northern California Championship. So we were just busy playing and playing a lot. So no, it wasn't time. It wasn't any time to look at the attention we were getting.
It sounds like from this article that your parents really helped you remain grounded as well, that your head never got too big, which, when you're getting all these accolades and winning these awards and stuff, that can happen to young guys. Tell me about your mom and dad and the impact that they had on you.
Well, my dad was a farm laborer. We grew up in the country, so we worked. we knew one thing is that we could work. So whether it was picking tomato, hoeing sugar beet fields, you could work. So we grew up in a working environment. Elk Grove is a um, farming area, so we were just a product of that area. And my dad was the ultimate worker. So you knew to get along in the world and get what you wanted, you had to work extraordinarily hard, which tied it to my basketball because now uh, it had two things. It got me inside out of the heat in Sacramento, and it allowed me the ability to just work and just do more. So that's why our teams were successful.
But how was it that you're being recruited by the nation? They want you. How are you able to keep your feet on the ground? Did Coach Risley help you with that? How did you get to that point where you could go, okay, I'm a basketball player. I'm not going to let this go to my head.
Oh, look, I wasn't. I was tall. I've been tall my whole life, but I've never been the fastest guy. I've never been the strongest guy. I always viewed myself as being a little more tricky and being more well rehearsed than anything else. So I knew what I could do, what I couldn't do. Um, and like I said, we could always really play hard or harder than my opponent and trying to be trickier, trying to be smarter than the opponent because you always knew there was somebody's better.
Mhm.
Somebody's definitely physically better. I just didn't want to make sure they were mentally smarter than I was. So, um, you just learn and you learn how to play. You learn from moves from your opponent. Um, so that's what we learned growing up. It wasn't humility. It's just, hey, if there's somebody better out there.
So you decide to go play college ball at the University of San Francisco at USF. How much of a factor was the success, the rich tradition the school had, Bill Russell, the 2 championships, the 55 wins in a row, had on you to make that decision?
I was really motivated coming into school. I didn't want to go out of California. There was only 3 schools I looked at: UCLA, USC, and USF. And I won't go into details, but basically those other 2 schools took themselves out. And USF was the only really school that was really dying to have me there, dying to play me right away. Um, so I was just really happy to be there. I had a great coach with Bob Gaylord and Dan Bawalami to really teach me how to play. We had a great cast of young guys coming in with Woodford Boynes and James Hardy. Woodford Boynes was a 2-time Mr. Oklahoma, and James Hardy was one of the best players in that Long Beach area. So, and he remains probably, one of my top 5 best athletes, along with Marlon Redmond, who played in the NBA. Ended up playing with Chubby Cox, who got a little stint down there. So we had talent. We had real talent on the team, and our expectations were extraordinarily high. So that's why after, it took us a little bit of time. We did not win the conference the first year. We lost to Pepperdine, and that was with a guy by the name of Dennis Johnson was there. He was kind of good. And there's also this guy, Marcos Leite, who was this big from South American kid who was really brilliantly smart player, and I learned a lot from him, basically because got killed. So, so my sophomore year, we were really ready to rock and roll. And by halfway through that season, when we got done playing Hawaii, we come off the plane and people are like, "Hey, you guys are the #1 team in the country." I was like, wow, really? We are. So that was just a really special thing. But we did have the talent, we did have really good coaches, and we're really determined to be one of the best teams in the country.
Did playing at USF as opposed to going to USC or UCLA, do you think in the long run that helped you become a better player?
Well, you're always hopeful that you're able to play and do well where you are, but it definitely suited me in my game. The fact that I did get the ball a lot. I did get to, for one thing, get to be able chance to play a lot. And also, I was more of a trailblazer anyway. So I wasn't bound and determined to go to a UCLA like everybody else. That's where you should go. I wanted to blaze my own path, even though I wasn't doing that either, because USF had a great basketball tradition. Winning the NIT in 49, Bill Russell in the 50s. Our USF teams, for the most part, we finished first or second in the WCAC every year. So we had good teams every single year. The only bad thing is that down the road, there was around tournament time, they had to play UCLA. That could be a problem.
Yeah.
Slight one.
But the tradition of basketball at USF has always been extraordinarily strong.
I know you just mentioned it a little bit. Did you feel, and from talking to you, I think I know the answer. Did you feel any pressure trying to live up to what Bill Russell had done at USF?
Nobody's going to do what Bill Russell did anywhere. This guy, you know, just a really great, special person. And think about this: this guy was the MVP in the NBA, not for being an offensive player. Think about this, or being a defensive player. I mean, who else has done that? That's how special this guy was as a player. And then to win 11 championships in 13 years, be a part of those teams, along with 2 NCAA championships. No, you can't measure up to that. If you'd like to do half of that, that would be good.
Yeah.
But this guy was really, really special player. So I was just fortunate enough to be able to spend some time with him. I actually met him in high school. He was great. It's great talking with him. But he did leave a great legacy for our school.
No question.
Was there any advice that he gave you, being that you guys played basically the same position?
Well, you know, we had different kind of games. His game was basically defensive. I was an offensive player, and it took me a while to learn how to do what he does. But he was a prolific shot blocker. He had great timing. Much better athlete than me, fat running and jumping and that. My game was totally different. So my game was just geared on just being able to play extraordinarily hard and just go straight at you, straight away. So different game, but the same goals in mind.
You're drafted by the Knicks, a long line of saviors for that organization. And in 1980, you didn't disappoint, an all-star and a member of the all-rookie first team that had Magic Johnson and Larry Bird on it as well. Not too bad of company there. How hard was it to carry those expectations in New York?
When I came to New York, for one thing, my first coach was Red Holtzman. So just to play with him, my teammate was Roman Rowe and Marvin Webster on the team. So, you know, you're looking around going, wow, that's pretty super cool. And so, but we had a young team with Michael Ray Richardson, Ray Williams, Sly Williams, Larry Demick, Jeff Houston. So our team was young. We had a lot of rookies. So we were just building our team up. And for the most part, we played really competitive basketball. But at that point in time, it was going to take us a little bit longer to be a playoff team and a playoff contention, because that's not where they were right then. Later on, this is actually after Ray got let go, we ended up getting Patrick Ewing. We ended up getting Bernard King. And reestablishing our teams, got Mark Jackson, got Kenny Walker. But the problem with that is with the Knick organization, we kept changing GMs and we kept changing coaches. So over the course of like 9 years in New York, We've had about 5 general managers and 4 head coaches. Not a great formula for winning. But one thing New York did give me was an opportunity to play, an opportunity to play a lot of opportunity to play with a lot of different coaches and different expectations and challenge. It gave me an opportunity to learn the league. And think about this in the league and coming up. My first big guy I went against was Gerald Dawkins. And then the next night, here comes Bob Lanier. And then here comes Artis Gilmore. And then here comes Cream. And then here comes Dan Issel. And then here comes Moses Malone. So you had to learn the league because these guys could really play. And everybody was different. And that's what the league was all about in those early years, learning to guard. Because I can score, but I couldn't guard anybody my first year. I got killed. But, it took a while with the help from guys like Marvin Webster and Truck Robinson. Really taught me how to guard and play position and play smart. And later on, we would get something called a scouting report. So we would learn, get players' tendencies. So those years in New York, they were not all the time fun, but they were a great learning tool.
So you had a series of foot injuries and you actually missed the whole 84-85 season. Was there ever a point in time during that injury that you thought that maybe your career was over?
No, I had one foot injury and it was a nightmare because it was a stress fracture. So initially, when you have a stress fracture back then, they let it heal on its own. And then after I made a recovery and thought my foot was good, it broke again. And it was a nightmare to start all over again. They pinned it, put a pin in that sucker, and it's been great ever since. But at that point in time, this is after playing in New York for 4 years. I'm probably missing maybe 8 games in 4 years. Now all of a sudden I'm injury prone. After one injury, this guy's injury prone. So, New York will do that also. It'll test your character. You have to find out who you are. Stay away from the media because they're out to do one or two things. They're out to build you up or they're down to kill you. So you just play, do the best you can. Luckily, I had a great family, great sporting group, all with my wife. So it took a little bit to get past, but we got past it.
But it also, from what you're saying, that you got killed your first year defensively. How, in a lot of ways, tough is that mentally? Because you come from USF where you were dominant, and then all of a sudden in the NBA, you guys were all about the same. How tough is that mentally to get over? And what did it take to work on your defense and catch up with these guys?
Well, just learning the guys. That's just part of the league. That's part of being a rookie, being a young guy. Once you get to know players and know what level of aggressiveness you can play with. And I should say this, because my first year in the league, you're a rookie. You didn't get any calls. I'm playing against Elvin Hayes. He's beating the hell out of me. And I touch him. It's like, that's a foul? Really? So you're not going to get any calls. And you just got to really earn your way. That's what the league was all about. Once the officials got to know you, then you're going to get the benefit of the doubt and they're going to let you play. But as a rookie, nah, you're not going to get anything. So, but you do have to learn. You do have to learn to be able to pressure and play as hard as you can play and not look like you're fouling. Because to me, if you're not fouling, you're not guarding. You gotta foul a little bit.
I know I'd read this, and you played against him. You were compared to Moses Malone. What was it like for you to play against Moses Malone? And actually, in your career, you had more wins against him. You were 30-28 against him.
Oh, wow. I did not know that stat. Well, look, there is nobody like Moses Malone. Moses Malone like a cat. He's like a cat. There's nobody that played in the NBA that could shoot the ball, go down, and go back up as fast as him. Really, an unorthodox player. Very dangerous when he gets going because there's no way you can block a shot. And he's just a terrific rebounder, especially of his own shot. So that's when he's most dangerous. He's shooting around a basket. Don't even bother to go for a rebound. Just block him out because there's a very high chance he's going to get the rebound and put it back in. But yeah, hard player, everyday player, just really, you don't think he's that quick, but he's that quick. So he was a lot of fun to play with. I can still remember a game that we actually played him in New York, and I think we held him like 12 points. And we watched him the rest of that month, and we beat him the rest of that month. And I think he was like 30 and 15 the rest of that month. And we're watching it like he's still mad about that game.
The great ones usually are, right?
Yeah. You don't want to upset anybody. You just want to get in there, beat them, and get out of Dodge. Don't rile anybody up.
We are talking with Bill Cartwright, player, coach, champion, and now, drum roll please, author, an autobiography titled Living Life at the Center. Bill, when did you decide to take this on? Did you go crazy?
Well, let's show it to you.
Oh, nice.
Life at the Center. Actually, you can get this because we self-publish this book. It's on bill-cartwright.com. And we actually started this during the pandemic. We wanted to be able to do a autobiography. We really didn't know how to do it, but it ended up because we had a couple people helping us, and we basically decided to do it ourselves to be able to find the right format to be able to write it. And we really learned a lot. Learned a lot about my parents, their journey, because nobody really knows their parents' journey of how they got to where they got to. My dad's from Texas. My mom's from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. How they ended up in California. Why did that happen? Just shows a lot of great vision. Things weren't great where they were. They wanted to change their lives. How they met. Why we lived the places we lived. So it was just a really great book about who they were as people, who their parents were that we never knew, and our relatives and how close of a family we were, the type of work that we had to do growing up, and then the journey of going to high school and learning that anything's possible. If somebody says you can't win them all, they're dead wrong, because when I was a junior, we won them all. We're 30-0. And then now a guy from Elk Grove is at the University of San Francisco. All of a sudden, we're the #1 team in the country, really. And then now after that, hard work, our school, a guy from Elk Grove's playing in New York City at Madison Square Garden. That's crazy, man. So, but it can happen just through hard work, putting the time in, putting more time in than anybody else, staying on course. Takes me to Chicago, another great city, where I'm able to play with a young team. It's funny when people talk about our team in Chicago, like everybody was a polished player. Once you got there, we knew that MJ could score, but Horace Grant was skitty. He was never a starter. Scottie Pippen couldn't make a 15-foot jump shot. And just how those guys grew, they worked, they grew. Jerry Krause made a change with Doug Collins, and now we got Phil Jackson as our head coach, along with great teachers of basketball with Tex Winters and Jimmy Rogers and Jim Clemens. just to be able to play as a team, or actually two teams, I call them, because the Bulls had played at least 10 guys every night. So we had two group of starters, I call them. So just how to build a team and how to play together, it was just a great learning lesson, and I'll never forget that. And then after that, to be able to play again in Seattle and then come back full circle, I was asked to coach from Jerry Krause to come back because I was done with basketball. So came back, coached, and basically the same group there, which was great. Same system. Learn how to coach. Learn how to, I take that back. Learn how to scout first. That was extraordinarily time consuming. And then learning how to coach with the coaches that we had there, Phil, Tex. I should mention Frank Hamlin, who was there. Was a great basketball guy, and Jim Clemens was still there. So just a great experience, just to be there and learn. So that journey of coaching, of course, after the Bulls, I ended up in New Jersey. I ended up in Phoenix, came all the way back home. I coached in Japan. I don't know if you guys knew that. Coached in Osaka.
Yeah.
No, I don't know any Japanese. I ended up in, I coached the Mexican national team, and just the lessons that I learned. Now, what I really want to say is that in all that, I've always felt like I was directed to every single place I've ever been, whether it's school. I got drafted by the Knicks. I got traded to the Bulls. The best deal was to Seattle. Went to grad school, got asked to coach. Then once we were out of there, I got called up by Lawrence Frank in Jersey. I got asked to come there. After I was done with there for 4 years, I got asked by Steve Kerr to come to Phoenix. And the same thing, coming all the way back home. I got asked to go to Japan. I got asked to go to Mexico, coach the national team. And then now I was asked to come back to USF. So my journey's been an interesting one in the sense that I kind of feel that every place I've been is where I should be. Because I've really been directed there. So, but I don't think I'm done yet. Who knows what next? But that's what this guy's about. It's about my journey, and thank goodness I have a good wife who's willing to put up with my crazy ideas, and I got a bunch of energy. So. Take the time to help me write this thing.
I'm looking at the cover, and you look the same. You have not aged.
No, not a bit.
I'm saying that it's the same person there.
Yeah, it's the same person without makeup. Think about that.
But what I was going to say is Dusty Baker wrote the foreword for you. How did that come about?
Yeah, Dusty, I've known Dusty since high school. Dusty's a Sacramento guy in Del Campo High School. I used to play against his brother, Vic, who I think is a year older than me. But Sacramento's a great sports town. And it's really funny that when I was the head coach of the Bulls, Dusty was the head coach of the Cubs. And Jerry Manuel was a head manager for the Sox. All three Sacramento guys. I don't know if that's ever happened before. So.
Oh, who knew?
Yeah, crazy, man. So those Sacramento guys are getting after it.
You mentioned earlier, everyone talks about Jordan, those Bulls teams, but the real success of a dynasty is more than one player. How instrumental to you were the combination of Phil Jackson and Tex Winter?
I thought they were great, in the sense that Tex was a great teacher. but Phil was the calming force in all of that. And I was fortunate enough to see that when I was on his staff, that he was very mindful about what he would say. Where some coaches, like Tex, would say, he's terrible. Phil would say, well, we're just going to have to get him better. You're just going to have to work with him today to get him better. So he was really mindful of positive words, positive thoughts, being real teacher of basketball and not getting too high. We won last night. We won 5 in a row or too low if we happen to lose a couple games. But to keep a great balance, you just keep building our team, and also just give you so much faith in the guys who were coming off the bench. So that now during the playoffs, who hits a big shot? John Paxson, big shot. Steve Kerr, big shot. Joe Bushler, big shot. Bobby Hansen, big shot. So enough faith to play those guys during the year. So during the playoffs and championship series, when we're playing Portland, Bobby Hansen makes 2 threes. And it's like, wow. But he's been playing all year. So it was just a contribution of not only our starters, but our second group of starters who would come in and a lot of times not only keep the lead, but extend it. So our second group was pretty darn good.
So you win 3 championships as a player with the Bulls, the first 3 championships. Then you come back and you're the assistant coach and you win another 3 championships.
Well,
What was it like as a player and then as a coach? Was it the same feeling? Was it different?
Yeah, it was different. I was coaching. I was actually more tired coaching than I was playing. Because it just took a lot more time. It took a lot of time to scout, watch film, watch tape, and just to do what was necessary to give your team an edge to win games. When you're a player, you're just focused on yourself and maybe the guy you're playing against. You're coaching, you're worried about everything. And it's just a great lesson. And I was just really fortunate to be on Phil's staff with that coaching staff because they were terrific, just great people.
Now I got to go to the obvious here, Bill. You're with Michael Jordan, his life's been dissected for the last 30 years, it seems. Is there something about him that you can tell us that we don't know, whether it be in practice, whether it be playing? What kind of person was he to play with?
Michael was fine. It's just, everybody has their own depiction of Michael in practice and, he's difficult. No, he's not. And what I give Michael a lot of credit for is that if he wasn't shooting the ball well, for one thing, he's never late for practice. He's always on time. Basketball was his priority. If he wasn't shooting well, he'd shoot early, before practice or after, because he was just surrounded by the media constantly. So I give him credit. I'll give him a lot of credit for that. So all that hype stuff is pretty crazy for me, and sometimes it's pretty laughable because the guy did at that point in time was the most talented player in the league. He is extraordinarily talented. He's big, strong, super duper fast, could split double teams. So you're going to see something really special. And he brings a great effort every night. So, and actually, like Dr. J, he changed his game and became a jump shooter later in his career. So, that's the big part of him, is that he did work extraordinarily hard. But in saying that, all of our guys on our team, when I got there in '88, were extraordinarily motivated. And our mission was to win a championship. So when people talk about Michael, it's like, was he really special and extraordinarily motivated to win a championship? Yes. But so was there. The other guys on the team didn't have as much talent, but they were just as motivated and just as determined. So we're just really fortunate enough to have a general manager, Jerry Krause, to be able to bring us all together. Besides Michael, that dude put together everybody else on the team. So we were able to win, play together, everybody play their roles, which is not always easy to get guys to do, probably gals a lot more. When I got there, my role was to guard. I'm like, hey, I'm the scorer. No, not this. A guard. That's what you do, pal. So guys are willing to play their roles. And I thought guys did that extraordinarily well. But we did have special players along with that, getting, Will Purdue, Stacey King, BJ Armstrong, Scott Williams. We're able to get best shooter on the planet, Craig Hodges. Craig still may be the best shooter on the planet. And then every year to be able to add to that, those casts of players to come in and fill those roles. That's what makes the Bulls special, is that it's probably something that's never going to happen again, because in this day and age, guys are going to leave for a buck more. So for us, we're going to stick around and want to win some championships.
You mentioned that the goal was to win a championship, not 3, 1. and in your way are the Pistons, and you finally get past the bad boys, and now standing in your way is Magic and the Lakers, and you kind of get past them, I think, in 5, and there you are. Finally, you're champions. What was that feeling like to win the first one?
Well, okay, for one thing, it took us 2 years to get past the Pistons.
It did.
And I've always said we should thank the Pistons, because the Pistons, they were just, everybody thinks that they were this great defensive team. No, those guys could really score. And along with being tough, they were tough players. So we just had to learn how to play how we play and through the contact. And once we were able to do that, that's how we were able to win a championship, by finding out what it took to defeat those guys. So we should thank them, because when we beat them, we ended up winning 3 championships. And once we were able to get past them, we actually, if you remember, we lost the first game at home. We were playing the Lakers.
Yeah.
And won the second game, and we were playing 3 games in LA. So it's funny how everybody's memory kind of gets joggled, but I remember people saying, oh, you guys got to get swept in LA. So don't even worry about trying to win. And they're right. It was a sweep, but it was us sweeping them. And it's kind of interesting that we made one adjustment in that series. We double teamed Magic in the backcourt and made AC Green bring the ball up the floor. And that little adjustment threw them off for the rest of that series, because Magic initiated everything in the course of that game, and it just changed the game around. So I'd like to take credit for that, but I think it was Johnny Bach that made the suggestion and really helped us win that championship.
I was at that game 5, and I still remember Michael's emotional reaction, because, like I say, he came in the league in 84 and he doesn't win a title till 91. So it was a long road. And it just seemed to me that it was such an emotional moment that can't be duplicated.
Well, I don't know how long you've been waiting, but I've been waiting 12 years for mine. So I didn't really see that.
And it was duplicated. It was triplicated.
Yes. And like I said, we're we had the right players, the right time, the right staff, the right GM, the right owner with Jerry Reinsdorf, willing to make trades, willing to pay a little extra money to get our guys in there. So it's just great timing. So, like I said, it was a really special time. Can it be duplicated again? You think, and we're the team in the '90s. Lakers are claiming to be the teams in the '80s. Boston's claiming to be the team in the '80s, but we're taking the whole '90s. We're the team in the '90s. So it was special time.
Now you played 15 years in the NBA. We know about your titles, but do you look back? Do you have one real special memory of playing in the league?
Now, you remember a lot of things from being in the league. You remember the first time you're in New York City, and you're in Madison Square Garden. And there's things that you remember. You remember, fortunately and unfortunately, seemingly I played every Christmas Day game, which wasn't always great, because I wanted one holiday off. But you got to remember is that I was married early, and I had a family, so they were a big part of what we did. Coming home, what are the kids doing? Kids are at the pool. What are the kids doing? The kids at Boy Scouts. What are those kids doing? They got a game tonight. So a big part of that, me playing, was playing that other role and trying to be a dad, trying to do for them what I had done to me. And I was well protected. I was had a lot of people around me supporting me. So that was really probably my number one focus, to make sure that they're okay. They're okay. I'm okay. I'm just playing basketball. I can do that. But those kids had the top nod.
That's a great man. That's a great answer.
Yeah,
Really is.
that's the greatest achievement.
Yeah, it is. It is.
Later they come back and it costs you a lot of money, though. That's the bad. Until they got grandkids.
More money.
Yeah.
Or never ends.
So we do a trivia segment on this show. It's called 50-50. I'm going to give you a 50% chance to get it. True or false? So flip of a coin. Do you remember the old television series, The White Shadow, with Ken Howard? He's the basketball coach. Okay. True or false? His character, Ken Reeves, was portrayed as a Chicago Bulls player.
That's true.
You're right. He was a Chicago Bulls when he got hurt.
That's right.
Yeah.
I heard he had to wear
Never knew that.
a lousy knee brace. But yeah, I used to love that show.
Yes, we all did.
Yes, I know. I was like, I love salami. Come on.
Hey, Bill, in the SI article, it says that you were dating the vice principal's daughter. And I think that maybe that daughter became your wife. Is that true? Is that the woman you married?
Yeah, sure is.
What is the key, Bill, to a successful marriage? You kind of just brought it up in the NBA. You're gone all the time. She's got to do a lion's share of the work. How hard is it to navigate that?
Well, you got to have a good partner and somebody willing to play the role. Well, my wife, Sherry, she loves being a mom. Loves it. I don't know how she does it. I couldn't do that job. But, 4 kids, somehow she got them to school. She got them dressed, school, all their activities. And just got that done. But she really loved playing that role. So I got really lucky that way. As they got older, of course, I could take them with me, especially during the summertime, and play whatever sports, do a basketball camp, go on the field, play some baseball, hit some golf balls with them. when they got older. But when they were little guys, she's really responsible for doing all that work. So now some of it wasn't too bad because they take off and go to Disneyland, Disney World. I've got a lot of pictures of them on rides at Disneyland. I'm like, where am I at? Oh, you're working.
Yeah, you're in Detroit.
So it wasn't too bad. But yeah, you've got to have a really good partner. So I was really very, very fortunate that way.
When did your kids know that you played in the NBA and you were quite the player?
You know, my kids knew, they've always known, but kids are kids. It's like, yeah, I know he plays in the NBA, but it's my dad. So that doesn't, you still have that role. And I don't know if you guys realize it, that you have kids, but somehow when your kids go to grammar school, you lose your identity.
Yes,
So,
yes.
Yes, you do.
Yeah.
Somehow, instead of your name being Mr. President Bill, it's like, yeah, that's Justin's dad.
Right.
That's Krista's dad. You don't have a name.
No.
You just kind of move down on the list.
Yep.
You're just part of somebody driving them around or feeding them, and then when they get older, give them a couple of bucks to go get a hot dog. So, but that was my role for them. I wasn't a Nick or a Bull or anything. I was just dad.
Bill Cartwright has done it all on the basketball court and now capping off an incredible career with a book, Life at the Center. It's called. Bill, tell us again where people can get your book.
Living Life at the Center. Bill-Cartwright.com. I'll say it again, Bill-Cartwright.com. Come and check me out. I think you're going to have some fun, some chuckles. I know I did. It's all good stuff.
I look forward to it. Perfect. Congrats to you, Mr. Cartwright, and thank you for joining us today on the Past Star Prime podcast.
All right, guys. Good job.
You're the best, man.
Thank you.
5 rings for Big Bill Cartwright, 3 as a player and 2 more as a coach. Not too bad for a kid out of Elk Grove, California. Mark, what else is going on in college hoops this week 50 years ago?
Well, you know what was happening in college basketball? Denny Crum, the head coach of Louisville, he apparently had to be hospitalized because he had a flare-up of his appendicitis. And they had a road game coming up against Drake. But between antibiotic shots, he decided while he was recouping that he would replace the Cardinals' man-to-man defense with a 3-2 zone. And what happened? It helped them beat Drake by 20 points on the road. And he played the game. So not only to avoid the surgery, he didn't have to have his appendix taken out of the time, but he ended up winning a big game. But the whole issue with appendicitis is what led him to change his defensive strategy and allow him to win that game as well, too.
Never out of it. Denny Crum, all the greats, they never are out of it, That's a good story. Let's move on and talk a little tennis, shall we? It's February of 1975 and a young 18-year-old girl who was just making a name for herself, right, Bill?
Yes, it's Martina Navratilova. Boy, I talk about someone that took tennis by storm and continues to be a leader in this age. I found it funny because Billie Jean King, at that time, Martina was 18 years old. Billie Jean says, if she wants to really be number one, she will be. But right now, she's erratic. It's just her age at this point. If she were really ready, she'd have come back and beat Chris Everett, a week before. A true champion wins tournaments back to back. And then Peachy Kellmeyer said, the question now is if she can keep tennis the most important thing in her life. I think she did.
Okay. I think she did too.
Yeah.
But can I say something else about Martina?
Sure.
She's obviously from Czechoslovakia. So this was her first season in the United States. She said, my eyes were wide open at that time. She goes, the big highways, the big cars, also wide open in those days was her mouth. She took in pancakes and Big Macs at such a rate that within 2 months, she had gained more than 20 pounds. She said, I was really fat and really slow.
You forget she's coming from Soviet Czechoslovakia.
Yeah, that's right.
So, there's no Big Macs and there's none of that stuff. So she's like eating to her heart's content. But, Chris Everett's the #1 women's player in the world at this time, but in a span of 3 weeks, Martina has faced her 3 times, beaten her twice, and it would go on to become one of, if not the greatest women's tennis rivalry of all time. Mark?
Yeah, I mean, remember this is 1975. In 1978, that's when she started her run. So 3 years later, I mean, she won 18 Grand Slam events. And it all started shortly after this article came out. Not when the article came out. She still needed that maturity that Billie Jean was talking about. But man, when she hit her stride, she hit her stride.
Well, and later in her career, her fitness became legendary. I mean, she was a master. It still is, but that's how she became great, is that she took that, what Billie Jean said, she took that to heart. I'm not sure if it was because of that. And she put away those Big Macs and stopped going to Mickey D's.
Right.
And instead started winning Grand Slams. All right, let's move on. A little indoor track and field for Billie. The quickening education of Filbert Bailly. We talked a little bit about him last week, about how he likes to lead from the pack from the front, but going indoors, he had to change things up a little.
Yeah, he says he has to change his tactics. He says, right, because indoor running is different than outdoor running. He's still obviously very good, but he decided to run with the pack. And that actually helped him because he ended up winning a gold medal in the 1980 Olympics, not for the United States, who wasn't there, but for Tanzania. But he didn't win it in running the mile. He won it in the 300-meter steeplechase. This is one that has water in it and water jumps. You jump over barriers and it's followed by a pit of water, sometimes 28 inches deep. I didn't actually know that they did that. I knew horses did that, but I didn't know the steeplechase you're running in water.
You know what they call that now? Something Bill knows very well.
Yeah, mud run.
Yeah, it's like, or Spartan run.
Yeah, that's exactly right. That's very true. But he also ran against guys. He ran against John Walker, and John Walker's part of the article. John Walker won gold in the 76 Olympic Games in the 1500 meters. And then there's Rick Walholter. He won a bronze in the 76 Olympic Games in the 800 meters. So Bailly wasn't running against guys like, oh, that guy. He was actually running against competition that was as good or better than him. So he changed his tactics to try to keep up with guys like that.
Yeah, he was a good one. No question about it. They are my life and my wife. This is about Frisbee. It's a long article about Frisbee. So I'm just going to throw this out there. You guys ever play Frisbee golf, any of that kind of stuff?
No.
I threw a Frisbee around, but
Yeah. We all know what happened to George Costanza when he played Frolf.
This guy, Vic Malafronte, I guess, was one of the first superstars of Frisbee.
Yeah.
I always think of dogs when it comes to Frisbee,
And I watched the video of the guy in there, the John Kirkland. I mean, his Frisbees are absolutely amazing. I mean, he threw it like 400 yards. I mean, it's amazing. But I don't know if this is the type of story that should be an SI. Maybe.
At least these people are outside. They don't look.
At least their arms are getting the workout.
That they're not playing a sport while they're smoking a cigarette
and playing footsie.
Right. Oh, for the record, Bill.
Okay. For the record, Rex Ellsworth. We remember him. They got his horses taken away because he had a barn that was full of dead ones and ones that were malnourished.
He wasn't feeding them.
The thoroughbreds were returned to him by the Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals, which had impounded them 3 weeks ago because of neglect and, like Scott said, malnutrition. The horses were returned to Ellsworth after he paid a reported $12,000 in liens.
We say this all the time. That would never happen today, blah, blah,
No.
blah. And, times have changed, right? It's 50 years ago, of course. He definitely would have gone to jail now.
Yes.
The outrage. I mean, look at what Michael Vick didn't do anything that, like, to this extent, I mean, that it's asinine that this guy was able to walk away from all of this. But anyway, Mark, what do you got?
Well, I got a fun ABA game. I used to love the ABA, that red, white, and blue ball, and I listened to a lot of San Diego Conquistador games on the radio. But so the Qs, as they were called, played the New York Nets in a game. It went 4 overtimes in front of less than 3,000 people in San Diego, and the Qs won the game 176 to 166. Dr. J played all but 2 minutes of the 68-minute marathon. He had a career high 63 points to go along with 23 rebounds and 8 assists. Now that's a game.
I mean, that sums up the ABA in one paragraph, right? One sentence almost. Yeah, 342 points. Julius Erving in a huge game, and very few people saw it. All right, faces in the crowd. Mark, George Clark, tell me his story.
Well, George Clark is captain of the Army hockey team. He actually gets inducted into the Army Hall of Fame. And I know you don't associate hockey with the Army, maybe football, not hockey. He had 142 goals and 109 assists for the team. But later in life, he became a stockbroker, and he also paints landscapes, like especially of Alaska. So him and Larry Zonka would get along real well.
Oh, certainly. Yeah. He loved that kind of stuff. 19th hole. Billy, 19th hole.
Sure, it's women's basketball. David Cox. This was 1975, so hopefully hopefully his family has learned a little bit. He said, after having seen a few seconds of the Immaculata Maryland game on TV, I still feel that there are 3 things that should be done in private: prayer, lovemaking, and women's basketball. Thanks, David.
David, what are we gonna do with you, man? You 1975 caveman.
And it's like sons and daughters probably had to read that somewhere and just thought, Dad, what's wrong with you?
They probably laughed their asses
Yeah,
off.
because that was what he was like all the time.
Right? Yeah. As we wrap up the February 24th, 75 issue with Dudley the Sheepdog on the cover of SI, for some reason, let me say to you, David, you are in the doghouse. I pulled out all the Markisms this week.
His bark is worse than his bite.
Yes.
No question.
Hey, guys, that's a rough ending. Come on.
Thanks to Bill Cartwright for coming on and talking with us, the great high school, college, and NBA star, and get his book. I'm going to get it for sure. Life in the Center at bill-cartwright.com. Thanks, guys. If you can believe it, we're done with February, on to March, and that means baseball. Spring is on us. So until next week, I'm Scott, along with Bill and Mark. We are past our prime.